Okay, great evening. Yes, I know I'm sitting in the dark. I'm out in the desert at the moment. Out in the desert in Quartzsite in my little RV, sitting in the dark. And I can see I-10 from here, and it's like watching these little lit up ants going down the way. It's really quite fun watching them like little ants going, little lit up ants going down the road. Anyway, I was asked to speak about, sorry about my throat, I've got a virus or cold or something, I don't know. Anyway, but it's affecting my speaking voice. Was asked by one of the listeners on a spiritual question about what's spoken of in the Turiya Rahasya in the different stages and levels of enlightenment, quote unquote, enlightenment. That some of them are, though they've had the experience of it, when they came back out of it, the mind rerouted, and so though they could speak of it, they were not really at the point of being liberated, okay? Although they would consider that they are liberated. And then, when that happens, if you had a taste of it, and that can be very dangerous when they go back and reroute into mind, and then they wrap it around the ego, that ego gets enlightened, and that's never the case. So anyway, the part that they were asking about was a part about when things first fall away and you're in the bliss mode, okay? And that it could be very difficult to operate in the, common world. Well, when things first fall away, at first, it's such a shift that to say I and me, it's you don't say it. This is something that has to be relearned. Okay. I know it sounds weird, but it's no longer the reality in your consciousness. That's no longer there. So this feeling of that divisionary, is gone. So, usually you say when one is this or something in that order. It took a good, I think, 6 months coming out of it. At first it didn't even want to speak to people. You're in such a state of quietude, and you listen to people and they're just chattering about, drama and chattering about, nonsense. So you don't even want to speak, It's just like, there's no relationship to that any longer. People are always gossiping about this and that, and, just not into small talk, those types of things. And at first, things are very much overwhelming for quite some time. It can be for a couple years, okay? You're so in touch with everything that just you're in bliss watching a tree, seeing the leaf move, and you feel the heart fluttering like the leaf that's moving, and it's blissful. Okay, it's just blissful. So you're easily entertained at that point, Just everything is, the eyes are just like, wow, 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 because even though you're in the same existence, it feels like a totally different world in one way. Everything is different, but nothing is different. It's again that juxtaposition that takes place. And this is not something that one can explain to others what happens. Because in one moment, everything has deconstructed. Everything that you thought you knew is now gone. It never existed. When everything falls away, it feels like one dies. You go through a death. And then it's like waking on the other side, but you know, you're beyond the five senses. It's not something you're seeing with your eyes, or you're feeling or touching or tasting. It's beyond that. It's something that is just part of being, that's finally opened, that it's the only way that I can explain it. It's more real than what you can feel in the physicality. Yet you're not separate from that. Okay? So again, it's not something that you are viewing or you are experiencing, because that's something that has to be separate from. And that's not the case. Okay? It's just simply what is the fabric of the universe. And you know, I have never been born, I have never died. I am simply that. You know, and that is it. So all at once, all these ideologies that one has had about God, and you know, God is and God isn't. For God exists, there has to be something other than God, but there's nothing other than God. Okay? So all of a sudden this is like, you know, it can be a mind bender, you know, because everything you thought you knew in one instant is turned on its ear. And when one comes back out of that, and at that time, there is no time or space, you know, it's, unless somebody's sitting there watching, you know, it's impossible to know if you're there for days or seconds, you know, it feels like an eternity. There's no time or space in that moment, okay? But when, again, one comes conscious again of this physical world, and the eyes are seeing with the physicality, but the mind is no longer registering that feeling of this separate things. They've gone from being something concrete to being more like, I'd say like more like dream states, ephemeral things, you know, like a movie. They will say like a movie on a screen. It's more like that. It's something that's being projected, like a movie on the screen. It's being projected out. But you know what the players are, okay? They're playing this part, but that's not who and what that is there at the core of being. Okay, it's something much more vast than what is being seen and lived in that day-to-day existence. Okay, well, I've gotten a little off because they were wanting me to explain what it's like to be in that bliss. But you know, a bliss state occurs way before realization too. You know, and that one is tough to come out of. When you start seeing, you know, this God energy, like for me during that time, I was really looking at Krishna. And so everybody I saw, every dog was Krishna, every person was Krishna, everything was Krishna. And you're in this overwhelming joy, bliss state. You're like a bliss monkey, you know. And everything is blissful and beautiful and this and that. And that state is, people think at that point that they've gotten to realization, but that type of bliss can happen very early on in your journey. Okay, that's pretty easy to get to. Okay. When everything falls away, it's a different feeling of bliss. It's a different thing. And again, you know, there are degrees, I guess you could say, like degrees. There are those that have a taste of it, but come back and the mind starts going again, thinking, and then they try to figure out what happened, try to make sense of it. And When that happens, then again, they've rerouted, gone back into persona. And then they can try to, again, superimpose this experience on persona. And then that's when you get a lot of the ones that want to proclaim themselves as, you know, avatars or this and that, you know, drama, craziness. Okay, they can get really crazy at that point if they've had a little taste and then layer it on persona, because they're not liberated at that point. They've constructed another storyline around it. Okay. It's only true liberation when you've reached to that Turiya Tita, where the mind has stilled. There's no running thoughts any longer. It's just quiet. Okay? Okay. And that's really hard to explain to people, too, what it is to be in that quietude all the time. People think, oh, if you're not thinking, if you're not actively having this thought and stuff, that you couldn't function. Well, that's not true. Okay, you're functioning directly from consciousness, but not this rambling mind of ideology any longer. That ends. And it doesn't come back. In my case, it has never come back. The mind has never rerouted, restarted again. So this has been ongoing since 1999. So quite a few years. So I would say it's not going to change. Now what changes is it's very hard to try to explain people what happens. You're no longer excitable about stuff. Like people think I'm really excited about my RV life or RV journey. I'm not. You know, you don't have the highs and the lows. Okay, you're just very like this. Even though outside you may be screaming at something, but inside it's just a core of quiet and still. So again, it's very difficult to try to explain to people how that can be. Yeah, I don't have anxiousness about things. Nothing is real until it's actually happening in that second. You don't look forward to something in anticipation. There is no anticipation because it's the only reality you have at that point any longer is exactly what's taking place in this second. Okay. That's it. Yeah, there are pure emotions that happen. You can feel there are emotions that are felt. But it's also in the very center is a stillness. So again, it's really something that's so difficult to try to explain to people what happens. I remember, you know, a little bit looking back now when I had, you know, before you're looking forward to something, you're in anticipation, you're excited about it, you're all, doesn't happen any longer. Okay, that goes out the window. That goes out the window totally. Yeah, you're just in a totally different consciousness. The reality for you, even though the world is doing the same things and it looks like your interaction with the world is the same, it's not. Internally, it's not. Like, you know, I don't do Christmas any longer. I don't do any of those things. It's just, you know, it's another day. That's all. It's another day. There's no looking forward to, oh, Christmas or this big thing or that big thing or, you know, it's none of that stuff. um, raises that type of emotion any longer. I guess you could say for people that have been really emotional, that they would think that there was something really odd about that, about this. Yeah, it's. I do my best to try to explain it, but it's really, really difficult to try to explain to somebody that's in emotionality, relationship, and those type of things what it's like to be in solitude okay, all the time. Um, yeah, very hard to explain it. I know that before realization, I had very extreme highs and lows, um, had very severe depression before. And then, you'd get excited about something, and that would be overwhelming. But none of those things take place any longer. Um, yeah, if you try to explain this to a psychiatrist, they would say you're very, what is the word they use? Trying to think, there's a word. Oh, disassociated. Disassociated. That you're so disassociated that you can't even go to that emotion any longer. You're so repressed, so disassociated. Now, I had severe, severe, severe PTSD before the falling away, okay? And so I had to go to the doctor and tell him what's going on. And oh, she's so severely disassociated. She just, can't even look at me. And I said, where I'm at, leave me alone, okay? All of that stuff falls away as if it never existed, never happened, okay? Again, something you can't get them to understand. They want to make it some type of a severe impairment or something, that because they can't understand how you can do such a radical shift can take place. That's not understood. So anyway, I'm going to leave this here. Again, I've tried to explain to people what it's like, but it's really impossible to explain what happens and what's your living reality when everything falls away. There's no more driving thoughts, no more driving patterns, no more of that. It all falls away. Okay. Like I said, as if it never existed. And one goes into an absolute quietude. Okay. So none of the drama ever comes back up again. As if it never existed. That's why it's called being blown out. Everything is blown out in that moment. It's like dead, like it never happened. Okay. And one comes out, and everything is changed and nothing is changed. Your whole world inside is totally different, but the external world goes on exactly as it was. Nothing has changed there. yet your whole interaction with the world in 1 second has been changed forever. Well, for some of us, forever. And for some, like I said, they get a glimpse and then the mind tries to make sense of it all, categorize it, you know. And for some, when the falling away happens, they go into Turiya Tita, where the mind does not reroute again, and then that's liberation. Okay? So I hope I've answered it. I think it's just rambling and trying to explain the inexplainable. There are no words that one can use to try to explain what that is. What is the core of being? Because words are all dualistic. They all suggest this and other. So there is no language that can explain what it is and what it's not. And from that moment forever, one is totally in solitude. No matter where you're at or how many people you're with, there's only that singular presence. Okay? That's that. Okay. And this idea of being something special or something unique or having to be a pedestal is ridiculous, because you know that no matter if it's a fly, if it's the greatest king, if it's the worst thief, all have the same amount of that God essence within them at the core of being. It's a great leveler of the playing field. At that point, okay. So again, the whole attitude, ideology, everything changes in a heartbeat. And those that come out and say, oh, they're this high being, they're full of crap, okay? They have a long ways yet to go, that's all. I'm going to leave this here. I hope everyone's having a great day. Continue your journey. It's well worth it, no matter what you have to go through. It's never easy. Again, sometimes it gets so difficult you don't think you could take the next breath. I never say it's easy. It's not easy till everything falls away. The most difficult thing you'll ever do, but the most rewarding as well in the end, when liberation shows up at the door. Okay. Have a great evening. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for your question.